So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Campillos, where the sun is shining, even in this cool winter afternoon. It's the Rotax Winter Cup Junior Final, about to get underway over 12 laps. The formation lap starts, and somebody has dwelt at the start now. Kart number 50 has not got away. It's Leonard Hoogenboom. Leonard Hoogenboom has not got away from the start. Nobody near him, not that he's got an awful lot that can be done, and these are horrible, horrible moments for Leonard Hoogenboom. If he can get rolling, if he misses one of his formation laps, he can find his proper place. If he can't get the kart to fire up at all, oh dear, it's one thing to lose a race, but to qualify handily for a final and not to be able to start it. Oh, sickening, sickening look.
Well as well, hasn't he, this weekend? 8th on the grid. They're pushing him off the grid onto the grass. They're going to try and fire it back up. There's the grid on screen then. Richard Verschoor on the pole. Max Timmermans second. Richard won 2 of his 3 heats to get pole for the pre-final, and then he won the pre-final. Max Timmermans been coming forward as the weekend's developed. Dave Wooder and Darren Keane on road 2. Alex Quinn going really well here this weekend. Yuri Vips likewise starting 6th. Tommy Preining 7th. Leonard Hoogenboom should be 8th, but he can't get the kart fired up. Finley Hutchinson and Jack McCarthy, I reckon, are both a couple of drivers that could come forwards and challenge for a podium. They complete the top 10 here for this junior final here at the Winter Cup here in Campillos, Spain, organised and run by the RGMMC. It's a 12-lap race, this. So 3 laps less than the DD2s for the juniors. It's going to be frantic. Yesterday in the heats where we had wet and then greasy conditions, and it was easy to go off the road. Sometimes you could just tell that the more experienced and older drivers in seniors in DD2 were trying not to take any silly risks and trying to persevere and preserve the karts and get through to today's action, whereas the juniors just threw caution to the wind half the time. We had some great battles yesterday as they dived in and out of each other, particularly on the way into the hairpins. So just being bunched up now, that's the run through this hairpin at turn 10. We see lots of overtaking in and out of that corner and into that right-hander at turn 11, and out of the pits comes Leonard Hoogenboom. Fantastic, they got the kart started. He's got to try and catch up now, half a lap. But luckily for him, there's quite a slow pace being set by the 2 front runners on this formation lap, this second formation lap. And if he gets a crack on here, he'll catch them up. But whether he's going to have time to get into his rightful grid spot, I don't know.
I think he can get himself to the back of the grid if this is a first-time starter, but I don't see himself getting up into that 4th row start that he's entitled to. Hope he does, not because I'm a fan of his, I just want to see everybody have the fairest shot.
And possibly would he be allowed to anyway, as
well,
he's dropped to the back of the grid.
Yeah.
So they've all gone past him anyway, so hopefully, I don't know where he's going to have time. I think he's going to have to need them to do another formation lap. Let's see if they will let him through. He's just going out down the back straight, and they're just coming up through turn 13. We're about to get the drivers coming up through.
Well,
the right
Chris, hearing the dramatic news that a black flag is being brought out.
He's just caught them up. He's just caught them up. We don't know the black flag's for. Race start is aborted, isn't it? Race start aborted. So he just caught them up in time, hadn't he, Leonard Hoogenboom?
But do we jump to the conclusion that the black flag is for Leonard Hoogenboom, or might it be elsewhere?
I'm not sure. Yellow light still flashing around the circuit. Well, we don't
haven't had an official notification, perhaps I should say, simply that we try to bring you the news as we learn of it, and we're just hearing a black flag being sighted, but we don't have a number put to it.
No, nothing official's come up on the board. Over the start-finish gantry, there is an electronic board with an LED display, and if somebody gets a penalty or disqualification, their number and the penalty flashes up on there, and nothing has flashed up. So now, Leonard Hoogenboom, where are you? Have you got back into your rightful place, or are you at the back? He's going for it now. Here you go. Look, to the right of your picture, that kart that's out of line, that is Leonard Hoogenboom, slotting back into 8th place. So he's made it. The kart wouldn't fire up off the grid, and 2 formation laps. He just got onto the tail of them as they're about to start the race, but he wouldn't have been in his rightful grid place, and they sent them back around, possibly because of that very reason, possibly allowing him that time to get back in place. So anyway, there's another formation lap, and now he has had time to get back into 8th place. So bit like Sean Babington, moments on the formation lap.
Chris,
he's got to calm himself down now, hasn't he?
I was just going to say, if the requirement for a good start to the race is the adrenaline really pumping, Leonard Hoogenboom must be off the chart.
So, 8th place, focus now and see what he can do. He's driven well this weekend, so I'm really pleased that he's been able to get this chance to get back where he should be.
Definitely. Would apply to anyone, yeah.
There's a lot of blue at the front, isn't there? Richard Verschoor leading the Max Timmermans, Dave Woodup. Are they going to hold everybody else back? Don't forget to watch out for the likes of Tommy Preining as well, who was the fastest in qualifying on Friday. He's in 8th place, and Jack McCarthy and Finlay Hutchinson both capable of moving forward. And what about Darren Keane? He got his first win at European level. The American is on the second row of the grid in 4th place. Here we go then, ready for the rolling start. Richard Verschoor on pole position for the inside. Max Timmermans with the orange helmet alongside him. Looks like a good start for Timmermans. Timmermans gets into 1st place. Second is Verschoor into the first corner, but he's got the inside line and gets back through. And Max Timmermans hung to dry on the outside line. He's going to settle back in around about 7th place, Max Timmermans. Despite the good start, he couldn't get across onto the inside line. And that's why I've been asking so many of the drivers about how important it is to be on the inside line at this corner. One car at the back going very slowly. I think there's two or three have come together at the back of the field through the gravel trap at turn 1, so we'll identify them when they come back around. But meanwhile, Richard Verschoor looked like he might briefly lose the lead. He hasn't, he's kept it, and Darren Keane is the one that's gone through into 2nd place as they come back down the hill through turn 9. But look who's behind him, David Wooder, going for a move up the inside into the hairpin. Has a look, side by side, he goes 2nd. So the British driver up to 2nd, ahead of the American. There's a big gap back to 4th, and in 4th place it's Juri Vips, who made a really good start off the line, but wasn't really able to make up too many places through the first corner. Juri, though, is coming under fire from Alex Quinn, who's right on his tail in 5th position. And then is that going back up into 6th place? It might be Max Timmermans. Yes, he's going back up into the top 6 now, or trying to. I think he quite did it, actually.
Not
as they
quite,
went through the
mate,
last
I
2
don't
turns.
The classic example, Chris, the dilemma facing the off-pole driver. You're neck and neck with the pole sitter, but you can so easily find yourself hung out on a peg, and when you come back into the mainstream, you're 7th or 8th, and that happened to Max Timmermans. However, it's a 12-lap race. There's plenty of time in which he can work his way forward from here.
So the ones we lost, Ken, were Danny Crozes at the back, Enzo Corsimo, Jarno Opmeer, and Scott Simmons. Look like the 3 or 4 drivers that have come to grief on that first lap.
Jarno having done it the hard way this morning by winning the Last Chance Saloon and not really getting a start in the final.
Race leader then, Richard Verschoor, looking very happy as a race leader. As I said earlier on, he didn't do that very often last year. He was often a midfield runner, had always the speed, but had a lot of issues, various issues in last year's European campaign. But he's hit the front early on in this season, and he looks comfortable being there. Wooder in 2nd, Keane in 3rd. Slight gap back then to Juri Vips, who's in 4th place. Juri Vips gets a good run coming onto the home straight, having a luck at the inside, but not quite close enough. And Darren Keane had a good run as well. He closed up to the tail of Dave Woodup. Then leading that next group of karts, 5th downwards, is now Tommy Preining. So Tommy up into 5th place. He was the one making the moves at the end of the previous lap. Alex Quinn 6th, Max Timmermans 7th, Hoogenboom is 8th. Oliver York, former British cadet champion, is in 9th place, and Jack McCarthy is there in 10th.
Well, Richard Verschoor got this comfortable lead, and as I mentioned just before the start, being looked after by Mats van der Brand, who was a double champion in Rotax Euro Challenge racing, went on to World Finals, and really Richard Verschoor at Rotax Junior level couldn't have a better mentor, and Max van der Brand looks to have rubbed some of the issues that he was able to harness to his advantage.
Oh dear, a black flag we're being told over the radio for Leonard Hoogenboom. That's the driver that had these issues, and he's been disqualified. I can only imagine this is related to a rule about how he started the race and the fact that he left the track and then came back in via the paddock and rejoined via the pit lane. I don't know that for sure, but that is what I imagine. So I'm afraid Leonard, after all of that, is going to be thrown out of the race. A real shame. Richard Verschoor leads. David Wooder in 2nd place. Juri Vips has gone 3rd now. And 4th is Tommy Preining. Darren Keane then dropping back to 5th place at the end of the previous lap. And then in 6th position, you've got Alex Quinn. Oliver York's up to 7th. He pulled off a really nice move into the corner they're about to approach on Leonard Hoogenboom. In this corner here, the left-hand hairpin at turn 10. This is where Ollie dived down the inside on the previous lap to get 8th place away from Leonard Hoogenboom. And behind him, in 9th place, you're going to have Max Timmermans, who's dropped down into that second group of karts. He's stuck behind Leonard Hoogenboom at the moment, with Jack McCarthy behind the pair of them.
It would be most advantageous if Max, if Leonard realised, and he does nip through, doesn't he?
Yeah, down the inside of Hoogenboom, an overtake that won't
a
actually
racing
reward
move.
him.
It's not that Leonard has realised just yet.
I think he has. He's slowed up now.
Is he touring off?
Well, he's let them through anyway, and Jack McCarthy goes through as well. Vishal Vashore goes through with a half-second lead. 8 laps to go. So we're at 1/3 race distance. Dave Wooder is about, well, he's about 3/10 slower on that lap. But by and large, he's been on a similar pace. So just lost a bit of ground on that lap for whatever reason. Juri Vips, he's been caught now by Tommy Pryning. Tommy had a disappointing pre-final, but the rest of the weekend has been great for him. And Tommy is gunning for a podium. I reckon he's gunning for a win, actually, isn't he? He's really quick.
I was just going to say,
lap of the race, actually.
You're right about being quick. There's only the race leader who's gone quicker, I think, in this race, just having had a quick peak.
No, Tommy's got the fastest
Tommy's
lap
got
now.
the fastest altogether.
66.2.
Excuse me.
So Thomas Pryning, the quickest driver out there, in 4th place. Watch for the man in the number 8 kart with the blue suit, closing up to the tail end now of Juri Vips. But all pulling away from Darren Keane, but not by that much. And if they start fighting each other, Darren could get in the mix. Max Timmermans makes another move here to get himself up into 7th place. Max Timmermans, that would have been on Alex Quinn, would it? Those two swapping around at the end of the lap. Juri Vips, they're in 3rd place, still hanging on to the position as they rise up now to turn 4. Looking at the inside is Tommy Pryning. He's going for the move. He's got it. Nice move. There wasn't much room there. Just about squeezed the kart through. Juri, to his enormous credit, gave him just enough room to avoid contact. Tommy Pryning there threading a piece of cotton through the eye of a needle, just about doing it without touching the side. So great skill and accuracy there from Tommy to get through into 3rd place. Head down now. His next target is David Wooder in 2nd. Then, of course, the race leader's not that far up the road, Richard Vashore.
Well, Chris, we have to make sure that we don't make silly predictions, but if we had have been making a prediction for midway through the junior final, the 1, 2 and 3, we wouldn't have been far off this, would we, with Richard Vashore, Dave Wooder and Tommy Pryning. And I think that Tommy Pryning has really got that little, what shall we say, spark, that extra little spark that he didn't quite have in the heats yesterday. Looks to me as if a podium wouldn't be good enough, that he wants the victory. He's putting the pressure on Dave Wooder as we begin to climb up the hill. Dave Wooder, absolutely no slouch, been tremendously impressed with him this weekend. Oh, and that was perhaps a little bit over-ambitious by Tommy Pryning, but he's got away with it. By getting away with it, I mean, he hasn't gained a place, but he hasn't lost anything, and it would be maybe a more judicious choice of attempt at pass, but clearly Pryning's body language, and there, Chris, you're seeing exactly what we're saying with Juri Vips in 4th place. Although Juri's just eased off a bit, and
there goes Tommy down the inside.
Tommy Pryning in 2 minds. Shall I, shan't I? No, I won't. Yes, I will. And it's happened, and he's in 2nd place.
Yeah, earlier on, the move you described, he tried to repeat the move that got him 3rd up at turn 4. It didn't quite work that time, but now he has got through ahead of David Wooder. So Tommy Pryning from 7th place at the start of the race into 2nd now. Dave Wooder still on for a podium though in 3rd. Vips 4th, Keane in 5th place, and Juri Vips gets a good run. He gets a toe up the straight, has a little luck up the inside into turn 1, but it's quite hard to outbrake somebody into that right-hander, because they're not really tanking on the brakes that much. So it remains in this battle for 2nd place now. Pryning, Wooder, Vips, and then Keane. Oliver York's in the top 6, Max Timmermans 7th, McCarthy is 8th, then Quinn, then Zach Falk has come up the order into the top 10 now. Hugo Bentley-Ellis has come up the order well. The British driver who finished 5th in the Minimax British Championship last year has come from 32nd up to 17th. So really good drive from Hugo Bentley-Ellis to get himself up into the top half of the field.
And Chris, something you said previously about Darren Keane, it looks to me Darren Keane in 5th place on the tail end of the 4 behind Richard Vashore, just sitting in there, not doing anything extravagantly, but they're not pulling away from him, measuring what's in front of him, not going for anything that would be overly ambitious. But you think that later in the race, if he had to, that there's a little bit more available to Darren Keane. 5th at the moment, but threatening 4th and 3rd.
You're right. Has he just done his fastest lap? Darren Keane won not far off, almost his fastest lap of the race there, just a few hundredths away. And you can see he's winding it up, can't you? He's turned the volume up to 10, Darren Keane. And he's suddenly honed in onto the tail of that group. So you got the leader, then a slight gap, 3 or 4 kart lengths back to the next 4, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Then there is a big gap back to what's become a quartet now in the battle for 6th place, but which is now being led by Max Timmermans. He's back to 6th. He dearly loved the top 5 to start fighting each other, so he could try and close the gap, but he's got a 3.5 second gap to try and close up on this lead group. It's not inconceivable that he could do it, but it's going to be tough to get onto the podium now for Max with less than 4 laps to go. The race leader through the right-hander at turn 11 has about a 3/4 of a second advantage. In fact, Richard Verschoor set his own fastest lap of the race.
Vips bidding for a move, Chris.
Going for it up the inside into the hairpin. Covers it off on the way out. Goes 3rd ahead of Wooder. So Juri Vips with a nice tidy move there. I thought he might run wide on the way out of the corner, but he held it together, didn't he, Ken?
Well, Juri Vips had to work hard for that, because David Wooder hasn't done an awful lot wrong, and because that took some working, that means that the front 2 have got quite a little cushion to themselves, which means that Richard Verschoor, whose lead has been totally closed by Thomas Preining, is now under more pressure from Thomas Preining. Why do I say that? Because Preining can take a little bit more of an ambitious gamble if he chose to. There's not somebody immediately behind to punish a mistake. Richard Verschoor, however, coming a little bit quicker onto the return home straight. Kart number 62 leading kart number 8, but Thomas Preining holding on about a kart length and a half behind as we go through turn 8, and Darren Keane putting the pressure on Dave Wooder. And Chris, we're used to seeing Dave Wooder making some handy passing moves. Right now it's a defensive move called for, and it's not going to happen because Darren Keane eases himself through from 5th to 4th, and the, well, what shall we call him, an Irish-American based in England, moves into 4th place.
What's the gap between the top 2 meanwhile? It's down to 0.2 of a second. Really pushing hard now as we go into the closing stages with 2 laps to go. Is Tommy Preining. He's almost with the race leader, Richard Verschoor, the Dutchman, coming under attack from the Austrian. Juri Vips, the Estonian, is 3rd. The American, Darren Keane, has got through to 4th place, but has got to really get a move on now if he wants to find his way onto the podium. Dave Wooder down to 5th. Max Timmermans closing in on them, leading the next group. He's in 6th position. Down into turn 9, then they go for the penultimate time, and heading down towards the turn 10 hairpin. Looking over his shoulder, not once but twice, is Richard Verschoor, just making sure he knows exactly where his opponent is. But he's just sitting behind at the moment, Tommy Preining. He's not going to try anything there. Is he close enough to try anything on the run? Out of turn 11, he's winding it up. The gap comes down and down and down, but there's no room at the inside because Richard Verschoor puts the card in exactly the right place.
Beautiful driving by Richard.
Beautiful job, yeah. He's got another lap to hold on to this though, Ken.
Indeed so, and Tommy Preining just winds the wick up again and gets on the inside. He's got to run on Richard Verschoor. Can he hold it? Yes, he can, and the Austrian takes the lead. And Thomas Preining, who qualified on pole position for all the heats but couldn't buy a victory on Saturday, didn't do so well this morning, has found himself on the last lap of the junior final in the lead. But it's not all over, because Richard Verschoor himself trying to come back, but Juri Vips saying, I'll have a piece of this. If there's a race fixture to be had, why not me? Tommy Preining 1, Richard Verschoor 2 and Juri Vips 3.
Here they go then, into the hairpin for the final time. A glance down the inside for Richard Verschoor in 2nd place. Juri Vips is right on his tail in 3rd. Into the right-hander at turn 11. Darren Keane is throwing everything at this to try and close the gap, but he's might just about catch them. I'm not sure he's going to have time to pass them. What about down at the hairpin? There, a change of lead, throwing it down the inside is Richard Verschoor. He runs wide, Preining runs wider, and Juri Vips goes from 3rd to 1st in one fell swoop. With 2 corners to go, he's going to win this. Juri Vips goes through out of the last corner from 3rd to 1st. Verschoor is 2nd, Keane is 3rd and on the podium, and it's a dead heat for 4th place as they cross the line. But it's Tommy Preining who just about holds 4th, but he'd be gutted. He led the race with just a few corners to go, and as soon as Richard Verschoor made that move, He had to go out wide. He was off the line, and they all darted up the inside of him. And after a brilliant drive from Tommy Preining, he's just lost it there at the death. But wow, Juri Vips, he'll be absolutely elated, won't he? Third to first with 2 corners of the race to go. The seas just parted for the Estonian, and he won by half a second. It looks like he won easily when you look at the timing screen, but that is not the case. Richard Verschoor second. He'll be, I think, probably a bit frustrated, but he went for the lead. And Darren Keane will be delighted to be on the podium for the first time in a European event like this. Tommy Preining fourth.
Best ever result by a USA driver in international competition in Europe.
There are the results on screen, Ken. I'll let you talk them through them, and I'll go down and speak to some very happy and perhaps 1 or 2 frustrated drivers as well. But what a race that was. Brilliant.
Well, Chris, one of the things that we tend to say in commentary sometimes is that somebody in third place or third in a group of 3 dicing together, their best strategy might just be to just hold station and be poised ready just in case. Well, that late in the race, Juri Vips needed to do something, but he was poised just at the ready. You have to feel a little bit for both Richard Verschoor and Thomas Preining, but hey, Juri Vips was where he needed to be when the opportunity came, and he was where he needed to be when the checkered flag came out. So once again, as we just take a deep breath, the final of the Rotax Winter Cup in the junior class has been won by Juri Vips of Estonia. In second place from the Netherlands, Richard Verschoor, and in third place from the United States of America, with very strong Irish connections, Darren Keane. In fourth place from Austria, the very unlucky Thomas Preining. In fifth place from Great Britain, he's driven oh so well all weekend, Dave Wooder. Max Timmermans of Belgium, sixth, and then a run of Brits, Jack McCarthy, seventh, Oliver York, eighth, Alex Quinn, ninth, and Zach Fulk completing the top 10. Good drive by Alessio, wow. Very good drive by Alessio Martinez into 11th place. Finlay Hutchinson, the Scot, was 12th. Hugo Bentley Ellis, the Englishman, 13. Another Dutchman, Luke Willems, was 14th. And the top 15 completed by Jordan Brown Nutley. It was a Welshman who was 16th, Harrison Thomas. Another Frenchman, Jean-Baptiste Simonau, 17th. And Hugo Chevalier was 18th. In 19th place, Will Tregurtha, starting that one stone last, so a good drive by the KR Sport driver. And completing the top 20, Dickie van der Val of Netherlands, who did not qualify in the last chance race this morning. What am I talking about? He was out of the top 6, but then someone else was given a penalty. Dickie van der Val was promoted and made it to the top 20. Well, that's the top 20, but at the sharper end, let's see what we can learn. We may have Chris talking with somebody, although I think we're not quite ready to go out towards him, so let's worry. We'll